fans. Dallas Cowboys, they have 10 picks in the draft, starting at number 12 overall, Jerry Jones. And the Cowboys have made no less than 72 draft day trades since he bought the team. 72! Here he is on whether the Cowboys are targeting a running back.
I don't think that running back was as significant last year and us not getting where we wanted to go as you do, and maybe others. I don't. I think it was our offensive line that was the bigger impact of the running back situation. Now, you say, well, but still, you didn't have that. You had an opportunity to get those kinds of running backs. Now, we hit on a Murray in the 4th round here a few years back, and he was a doggone good running back. Ooh, look at that offensive line he had in front of him. Think about it. Think about it. Look at that offensive line that Zeke had in front of him. Can you cure the running game with the back? You can help it, in my mind.
I mean, you can't argue with that, but still they need a running back.
That's the first thing I think I've ever heard him say that I football-wise completely agree with.
Yeah. They still need a running back, but they need an offensive line. Right.
Yeah.
So is that where they should go? I mean, they have the 12th
You agree,
pick.
they should go
right
O-line.
there. Starting there at 12?
I don't take running back if I'm the Dallas Cowboys that early. I
Yeah.
think the class is deep. If I'm the Cowboys, I very much so entertain wide receiver at 12. I could see O-line if the right player's there. I actually think some of their young offensive linemen will take a huge step forward from year 1 to 2 or 2 to 3. I think Matthew Golden, Ted McMillan are probably two of the likeliest. CeeDee Lamb, he's a number 1. But J-Mac, you know, there's no reason to have a number 1 if you have to force the run the ball. Like, you want to take advantage of the number 1. So if you can get size with a Ted McMillan, who reminds me so much of Drake London, a completely different skill set than CeeDee Lamb, or a Matthew Golden, who's probably a little more of a burner, maybe. I mean, I think CeeDee's got plenty of speed as well. I just look back to last year, and when Dak was healthy, there was this, oh my goodness, he's forcing the ball to CeeDee Lamb. 4 touchdowns, 4 picks when he's throwing it to CeeDee Lamb. That should not be the case. Joe Burrow throws the ball to Jamar Chase. It's like 18 touchdowns, no interceptions type of thing. So I think the Cowboys very much so need to really entertain wide receiver at 12. And if it was me, if I had to pick one, it would be Ted McMillan.
Yeah, they got some holes at defense, too, though.
Yeah, they definitely do. They had Stephon Gilmore in today. He was in the building to try to get that cornerback position. But I wrote down Ted McMillan as well. And I think about what Dan just talked about. And he mentioned forcing the ball to your number 1 receiver. What allows you to open that space and why Joe Burrow is able to throw the ball to Jamar Chase is because T. Higgins is on the other side. And I experience it as that number 2 cornerback. When you can double team or play a safety over top of your number 1 option, the quarterback still wants to throw him the ball at least 10 times a game, and it gives you an opportunity as a defense to take the ball away. So getting a guy like Ted McMillan on the other side allows that open space for CeeDee Lamb. But I do think if they could go up and get a guy like Ashton Genty at the running back position, to your point of if you have offensive linemen that you feel like are going to develop, I think that's when the running back position can be different when you do have an offensive line.
Yeah, they got 10 picks to play with. They got a lot of draft capital. Come on, GM. What do you think about what J-Mac just said?
You think go up and trade up to go get Genty?
What do you think?
I think
like jump Chicago?
Yeah, I wouldn't do that just because I think there's so many holes.
See, as the Raiders going up to 3 to get Genty.
Right, but Hannah, but you think about, they talked about one side of the ball, the other side of the ball, you lose guys like DeMarcus Lawrence, you still need another defensive tackle, a bigger inside linebacker. Jason mentioned corner, so to me, like, to trade up, you're not one player away. And if we're staying at 12, I actually would take Matthew Golden because of the explosive speed. You look at Philadelphia, you know, what they've done obviously with, you know, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. You look at the speed that the Dolphins have. Like, I think that's the one explosive element. Like, I think CeeDee Lamb's a really good player, but if they can hit a home run with Matthew Golden, that gives them something they haven't had.
Over McMillan? What if McMillan's on the board? You take Golden?
I like McMillan a lot. I think Dan mentioned Drake London. I see Mike Evans. I love the physicality, but the tiebreaker for me, the way this game's played now, it's speed.
I do think the Cowboys, like, I lean towards wide receiver at 12, but if one of those offensive linemen's there and you love them, and you can get into the second round and you can get a Trey Harris from Ole Miss at the wide receiver position, you can get a Higgins from Iowa State at the wide receiver spot. I just think the Cowboys need somebody with a little bit more size as well. Like, CeeDee's a long and lanky, he's bigger than you think type of receiver, but you don't have any, like, I go back to your point of the T. Higgins, T's size just opposite Jamar is a problem for a team. So Turpin's vertical threat. I just think
he's such a route runner too.
Yeah,
like he's creating that space
for him.
You get a guy like Ted McMillan, that's your contested catch guy. You get down in the red zone, throw the ball up, third down opportunities where guys are covering them.
Exactly.
You can get him the ball.
Yeah. Listen, other than CD, they've had a receiver average more than 45 yards a game since Amari Cooper. Brock Purdy, who did arrive for the start of OTAs today. Here's GM John Lynch.
I think there's been some substantive talks that have this thing going in a good direction, and I'll leave it at that. He's a very clear-minded and not going to let other people influence like what he should be doing, and it's one thing everybody I think respects about Brock. He's done a lot for this organization, and we're grateful for him, and looking forward to having him as our quarterback for a long time.
Yeah, but it's taken a long time to get this deal done, Mike T. What's the sense of urgency that they should be having here?
Yeah, translate GM speak there. I think they're making really good progress on the contract, and it'll get done. Dano alluded earlier in the show, they've lost a lot of players, but I think part of that was strategic planning, that they got to get Brock Purdy signed. I think sometimes we take it for granted. I like the 8.9 yards per pass attempt, and I think he's a very accurate and somewhat underrated thrower of the football. And if you don't have one, Brock Purdy looks really good. I just can't imagine they don't get this deal done. Yeah, fourth best total QBR since coming into the league. All right, meanwhile, and it's a great story. Commanders quarterback Jayden Daniels had this to say about year two. When it's time to prepare and when those games come, I've got to know that, hey, how can I eliminate some tendencies? Stuff like that, because that's a big thing. Coaches are always trying to find tendencies of what this player is going to do so they can anticipate and hopefully get you in that situation. Dan, what tendencies does he need to address?
Well, I think two things. One, their offensive tendency, and I talked about it last year, was they're just a slide protection offense, meaning they just take one side and they just go left or right, and teams will start to attack that even more in their no huddle. The second thing is they were so ridiculous on fourth down last year that it did mask a little bit of stuff. And I go back to Houston 2 years ago, C.J. Stroud rookie year. He was ridiculously good on third and long. That doesn't carry over consistently annually in the NFL. I would expect that not to be the case for the fourth down situation for the Washington Commanders. So the reality is, can they be a little bit better and more explosive on early downs so they're not so reliant on fourth down to kind of continue to control the ball? If they can do that while still being good on fourth down, this would be one of the best offenses in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, he completed all 8 of his fourth down passes last season. But again, you don't want to rely on that. And you mentioned C.J. Stroud. Let's go there. He was asked about taking more control of the Texans offense. Nick Caley yesterday. Here's what he had to say.
Taking control and, being a little more pre-snap, having tools to put my guys in the best position. And that's, something that we really didn't work on these last 2 years. But even those principles I learned from, and it made me better because it added a new element to my games. From what he did with New England and LA would definitely help me, because I feel those are two schemes that I'm kind of used to, in a sense. Like, that's kind of what I ran in at Ohio State, what kind of New Orleans does a little bit, and he's all about me taking full ownership and running the show, and that's what I want.
Man, I like this idea as a Texans fan. What about you, J-Mac?
All I heard was ownership of the offense by the quarterback right there. That's what it's all about. I know as a defense, when we can go into a game plan and we know that we can game the offensive line up front and do different things at the line of scrimmage, and they're not going to adjust, it's advantage us. For C.J. Stroud, getting a guy like Nick Caley, who I was with in New England, he's a guy who listens to his players and is willing to implement whatever it is that they like. I love this for Stroud, him taking the next step and his leadership on that Houston Texans team.
Thanks, J-Mac. We want to take a moment to bring you some sad news at ESPN today. Our former colleague, Mike Patrick, a play-by-play commentator for 36 years here, died of natural causes on Sunday, according to his doctor, and the city of Clarksburg, West Virginia. Patrick called ESPN's first ever regular season NFL game back in 1987. He was the voice of Sunday Night Football for no less than 18 seasons, and you may remember his call of the Music City Miracle, one of the greatest moments in NFL playoff history. And he worked on college football, he worked on basketball as well. He called his last game, the Liberty Bowl, back in 2017 before retiring. When the West Virginia native left ESPN, he said that he had done exactly what he wanted to do with his life. Mike Patrick was 80 years old.